Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's go ahead. You guys know I have to see it. Got to make sure. Got to make sure we're live. Twitter's already awake. Twitter's always first, but YouTube not quite awake yet on my end. YouTube is awake. Good morning, YouTube. How are you? Hope you are doing terribly well. Let's give some people a chance to load in here. And Rockfin, you are awake. What is up, Rockfin? Thank you for being here. All right, so we got it. Took a minute, but we definitely got it. We are live. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good day. Salutations. Hope all's well. Hope you're crushing it. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. This is the headline show of the week where I talk about the news that I think is important for this week. And we got a lot to get through today. First of all, we got a pretty breaking thing on the Amazon union vote out in Albany, and it doesn't look like it's good news. We're actually going to start there because you guys know me. I like to start with good news first. Also, in the world of data surveillance, we got another story of cops being cops, and it's a doozy. That takes us out to Louisville, Kentucky. Also, we're going to stay in the digital rights space for a little bit because here is a story of something that's been going on that was revealed via a deep dive by the organization Markup. And it's going to show you why we really need a fully staffed FCC and net neutrality back immediately. Also, climate change. We're going over to climate change. COP27 is going to be sponsored by Coca-Cola. That's something. We got all that, a little bit more. Let's start with Amazon, like I said here. So check this out. This is from More Perfect Union. Breaking. Amazon workers in Albany have voted against unionizing with the Amazon Labor Union. The final vote count is 206 yes to 406 no. So pretty big warehouse out in Albany. This has gotten a lot of press. You know, we've been talking about all the Amazon union efforts on this show. Albany was the next big election. All eyes were on it. And they voted no. Now, here's the deal. Here's some of the details. We're going to stay on this thread for More Perfect Union. The company has been waging a brutal union-busting campaign for months. They've been firing union supporters, calling police on organizers, and more. We did a deep dive into all the union-busting efforts they did in Bessemer, Alabama, too, where they would take out traffic lights so people couldn't pass out pro-union literature to workers as they were driving into work. They only allowed anti-union materials to be up. They would antagonize people for asking pro-union questions at meetings. They had the drop box right in the middle of the workplace where there was no privacy at all. So you felt vulnerable about people knowing how you voted. And if you voted for the union and it didn't pass, you were worried about retaliation. And of course, the labor board said, this is ridiculous. You can't do this. This needs to be redone. I wonder what they're going to say about this one. So here's some of the other stuff Amazon did here in Albany. Amazon fired 4 pro-union workers at the warehouse, including Amazon Labor VP Andre Beaupre, shortly after the union drive went public. The company also fired countless other union supporters in the month leading up to the election. Amazon officially fired Beaupre over accumulated unpaid time off. The reality is far more complicated. The reason Beaupre missed a few days of work? His grandfather died. His mother went into a coma, and Amazon wouldn't let him change his schedule. Let that sink in. The guy lost his grandfather. His mom's ill. Amazon says, come to work. That's sick. That is sick. And there shouldn't need to be a law around that. We should be humane enough as a society that it goes without question. When someone has a death in the family, when someone's parent is ill or a close family member is ill and they can't be at work, they're excused. End of story. Sadly, because we're such a sick society, there needs to be laws around that. And there should be. It should be totally illegal to do that. Amazon fired Albany warehouse worker Michael Verastro for kicking an empty cardboard box. That's good. That's good that Amazon cares about empty boxes more than they do about human beings. If you work here, we don't care. We'll shock you to make sure you're making your efficiency numbers. We'll make you piss in a bottle to make sure you keep your routes. We'll allow you to collapse from heat exhaustion because we don't want to pay for air conditioning. Oh, and if you have a death in the family, we'll fire you if you want time off. But you better not mess with our empty cardboard boxes. They have feelings. Michael Verastro is 60 years old. He's battling prostate cancer and has a history of clinical depression. So that guy, he was nixed because he kicked a box. Amazon put lead organizer Heather Goodell. Amazon put lead organizer Heather Goodell on a final written warning the same day that the National Labor Relations Board signaled that a union vote was imminent. She was denied representation during the disciplinary meeting. So they're intimidating all of these pro-union workers, and they're firing some of them. Leaked video from mid-August showed Amazon managers shouting at workers and warning them against signing cards. "Stay out of the way," one manager yelled, pounding a table. "I'm up to here with their bullshit." Let's watch the video. Here, let's check it. We'll watch some of it.
During your lunch off the clock. And I told him, I said it wasn't even talking while I was talking to Cornelius. He stepped to the side and he started recording the whole thing.
But they didn't see it. Well, that's okay because Amazon has cameras outside. Amazon has cameras outside.
Don't worry, Amazon has cameras everywhere.
I don't think I really cussed them, right?
It doesn't matter.
What a horrible, horrible place. Amazon also sent local police to confront organizers at the Albany warehouse. The company called the police on organizers at least 5 separate times during the union drive. Here's some information from that. Amazon management again called the police on Chris Smalls and the Amazon labor organizers in Albany, New York. This time they threatened to arrest them. Wow. Just freaking wow. I mean, what a horrible, just wicked place. And by the way, in the United States, people celebrate this. They celebrate Jeff Bezos. They say he's something to attain to. This guy who is a pure sociopath, who gives these horrible lives and conditions to workers. Also, he can just make a little bit more. So he could just Jeff Bezos is rich beyond comprehension. He will never want, his children will never want, their children will never want, their children's children will never want, their children's children's children will never want if we still have a planet. And he still needs to just treat workers like garbage so he can get a little bit more. It's still not enough. That's sociopathy. He could give everybody a living wage, treat them well, give them fair benefits, give them decent paid time off, treat them with dignity. He'd still be rich beyond comprehension. He'd still be pretty much the richest guy in the world. And that's the bare minimum to ask for. I mean, just imagine if he gave people what their labor actually produces. If workers were actually given the true production of their labor or even close to it. And he doesn't even have to do that. Just give people a living wage. Give people a decent living wage to have a decent life. And by living wage, I don't mean, okay, I just covered rent by the skin of my teeth. No, by living wage, I mean you make enough money that you can support yourself, you can support a family, you can have a roof over your head, food on the table, and you can enjoy life. That's called a living wage. The word is living wage, not surviving wage. And guess what? We don't even have surviving wages. We have poverty wages. We have exploitative wages. So, I mean, obviously this was not a genuine election. People were scared. You're scared. If they're arresting pro-union people, firing pro-union workers, intimidating pro-union people, a lot of people, they're just going to vote no because they don't want to lose their frickin' jobs. That's what happens all the time. And then the labor board sees what they did. And they're like, you can't do this. This isn't a genuine election. You can't frickin' do this. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see what happens here. But this is what happens with capitalism. This is capitalism, folks. I know people, they like to polish the turd and they like to insert some adjective. No, Rod, this is crony capitalism. This is corporatism. This is capitalism. This is what capitalism does every single time it is tried in human history. This is what it has always done. This is what it will always do. There is no reason for it. There are tons of myths around it. Capitalism has never lifted anyone out of poverty. Capitalism causes poverty. It's the reason for poverty. And you still hear people say these, well, there is a reason for capitalism. What reason is that? What reason? Give me the reason. There is no frickin' reason. It benefits a few and exploits the many. That's all it has ever or will ever do. Because capitalism is private ownership, profit above all else, and those with the power make the rules. That's what capitalism is. So every time it's tried, it's going to do the same freaking thing. And then you apply some checks and balances, and then it just does the same thing again. It's like, well, we keep putting this wolf with these sheep, and the wolf keeps eating the sheep. We put a fence up, the wolf broke down the fence, eats the sheep again. What can we do? You can't have the wolf with sheep. Same thing here. You can't have capitalism in humanity. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, we'll see if the labor, I know like they're fighting back now saying like we can't have fair elections given everything Amazon has done. And if the labor board rules in favor of the workers, it wouldn't be the first time. They did the same thing in Bessemer. They said, you need to redo this because this wasn't fair what you freaking did. So we'll see what happens. Let's go over to digital rights for a little bit, shall we? And here is a story that's going to make your frickin' stomach turn. You ready for it? It's pretty gross. Here's a story about cops and why we need better data protections and why we shouldn't be handing over all kinds of surveillance to cops, which, by the way, people who have Ring cams in their neighborhood, Ring has a contracts with law enforcement. Law enforcement can get whatever they want. So entire neighborhoods are under surveillance. And guess what else? This is the kind of stuff they do with it. Are they finding the bad guy? No. Here's what they do. Oops, sorry about that. Ex-Louisville police officer used law enforcement tech to help hack sexually explicit photos from women. That's what they're using this stuff for, folks. There is no data out there supporting that facial recognition software or data surveillance or hacking or like all this handing over of DMs by Facebook and social media. There's no evidence out there that it has helped the police catch the bad guy, quote unquote. But there's plenty of instances like this where they're using it to troll for nudes. Isn't that great? A former Louisville Metro Police Department officer, of course, they're going to, keep the officer used law enforcement technology as part of a scheme that involved hacking the Snapchat's accounts of young women and using sexually explicit photos and videos they had taken to extort them. According to a sentencing memorandum, Brian Wilson, not the Beach Boy, used his law enforcement access to Accruient, a powerful data combing software used by police departments to assist in investigations, to obtain information about potential victims. He would then share that information with a hacker who would hack into private Snapchat accounts to obtain sexually explicit photos and videos. If sexually explicit material was obtained, Wilson would then contact the women, threatening to post the videos photos and videos online and share them with their friends, family, employer, and coworkers, unless more sexually explicit material was provided to him. Just a few bad apples? This could be reformed, right? We can reform policing in the United States. This could be reformed. Just a bad apple, right? There's not a systemic disease that leads to bullshit like this. Cool story. In June, the DOJ announced that Wilson, 36 at the time, had pleaded guilty to a cyberstalking charge. And he's still around. Interesting. As well as to a charge related to what the LMPD has called Slushygate, a series of incidents in which Wilson and other officers assaulted pedestrians by throwing beverages out of unmarked patrol vehicles, sometimes filming their exploits. Cool guy. Cool guy. He got a badge and a gun with no problem. Got a badge and a gun with no frickin' problems. So this is why we need full encryption on our DM, folks. It starts fighting back against this stuff. Law enforcement shouldn't have access to the stuff they have access for, but this helps us fight back. And again, makedmsafe.com. That full URL is makedmssafe.com. Makedmssafe.com. Go there, sign the petition. It demands full encryption of all messages across social media. Facebook turns over DMs to law enforcement on the daily. Usually it's about people trying to access abortion information in a post-Roe v. Wade society. So please, we got to start fighting back. This is one of the ways we fight back. So he was going around trolling for nudes, throwing slushies at random people. Isn't it amazing that this guy was a police officer and the least terrible thing he did was throw slushies at people for no reason? That was like the least terrible. That was the least terrible thing he did. They're like, yeah, he would throw slushies at people. Like as a gimmick. Like, God, he could have really hurt someone. That's terrible. He should be fired right away. Oh, wait, no, there's more. He was doing way more. That's actually the least of his infractions. He was also blackmailing women. He would try to get nudes, and he would blackmail women for more nudes. Wow. And he worked with a hacker. Isn't that the best? Wow. But it's just a few bad apples. I don't know how anyone... yeah. Wow. Okay. So that's going on. And again, makedmssafe.com, which means makedmsafe.com. So we're going to stay in the digital rights space for a little bit. And we're going to go here now. So we are living in a we're basically living without federal net neutrality. Now, we're not in an entirely post-net neutrality society because some states do have net neutrality because states pass bills. My state, California, is one of those states. But right now, the FCC is in a 2-2 gridlock because they still have not confirmed Gigi Sohn. Beyond qualified, a pro-net neutrality appointment. They still haven't confirmed her. She's in gridlock, probably because Joe Biden doesn't care, and Chuck Schumer has a ton of big tech conflicts of interest. Why did I say probably? That's definitely why. But anyway, if they don't confirm her by the end of the year, they'll have to re-up her nomination, which might not even happen. And guess what? Because the FCC is basically in gridlock, 2-2 gridlock, and because net neutrality on the federal level has been repealed, ISPs are seeing what they can get away with. Here's an example of that. And this is why net neutrality is important, folks. I know it's not the most hot button topic, and it's never going to be, but it'll be really, really important when we don't have it anymore. And you know what? I hope we don't wait until it's too late. I will take no pleasure saying I told you so if we lose net neutrality completely and the internet as we know it becomes a thing of a past and it's just cable television 2.0 and most people won't even be able to afford it anymore. They'll still find a way to exploit poor people. Don't worry. If they take away the internet as we know it, Amazon will find a way around it and it'll be fine. Facebook will find a way around it and be fine. Google will find a way around it and be fine. Who won't be fine? You and me. Us. So here's one of the things they're doing. Depending on where you live, the internet AT&T offers you may be faster or slower. So this was a investigation in Kansas City, Missouri. This was done by the Markup. So these two households with different speeds are only separated by a few blocks in Kansas City, Missouri, but their surrounding areas are worlds apart. So these two houses are 0.4 miles away. The household with slower service is in a lower income area with fewer white residents. And the house with a better service is in a more wealthy area that has 70% of white residents. The slower service does not come with a better price. Both households are asked to pay exactly the same. So both are paying $50. That's actually a pretty good deal on internet. I got to say, $55 a month. Mine's way more than that. But anyway, AT&T is one of 4 internet service providers the Markup found in 38 cities across America, offering slower speeds for the same price as faster speed. So basically, I guess in poor areas, they're like, what are you going to do about it? We're going to give you slower service because it saves us money. We're going to charge you the same, though, because what are you going to do about it? You're going to complain? You're poor. You're working 2 and 3 jobs just to survive. We don't give a shit. You're less likely to complain. People with more means, they're more likely not being willing to take it. So that's what they're doing. You may be paying 400 times as much as your neighbor for internet service. An investigation found AT&T, Verizon, Earthlink, and CenturyLink disproportionately offered lower income and least white neighborhoods slow internet service for the same price as speedy connections they offered in other parts of town. This is why you need an agency that enforces these laws. This is why you need, first of all, you need the law. We don't have the law. Net neutrality is not officially on the books, so they can get away with this. And this is what they try to do in a post-net neutrality world, folks. It's perfectly possible that we could be seeing dial-up type situations in a post-net neutrality world. You take a medium for granted, you're going to lose it. That's the American way. They took radio from you. They took TV from you. You don't think they'll take internet from you? You don't think it's just another medium? I got bad news for you. It is. Go to battleforthenet.com. Demand action on net neutrality. Demand Gigi Sohn be confirmed now. This is an attainable win, and too much is at stake. Too much is at stake. Imagine losing the internet as we know it. So, let's move on to some other stuff. Let's move on to climate here. We're going to switch over to climate change. Then we're going to end on a little bit more labor news. Climate and labor news. By the way, if you got any questions, any thoughts, please do leave a super chat or a Rockfin tip. That helps keep the show on the air. And I will, of course, get to all these super chat and Rockfin tips at the end of the stream. So please do leave a super chat or a Rockfin tip. Thank you very, very much. But right now, we're going to go over to The Guardian. Check this out. COP27 Climate Summit. Now, if you remember, that's the climate summit that they have each year where all the leaders of the world fly to a location. So starting in a hole already. I mean, wouldn't it be appropriate for a summit like that to be on Zoom? You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, don't travel ever. I mean, obviously I travel. You know, you do the best you can. But when your agenda is a climate summit, like I think virtual is just more appropriate in that situation. It'd be like, hey, we're having a big vegan conference. Enjoy tonight's dinner. Feel. You know, like that's sort of, I feel like you're missing the mark there. So COP27 Climate Summit sponsorship is Coca-Cola. People are condemning that as greenwashing. That's putting it gently. That's putting it gently. Now, by the way, the last climate summit, if you remember, it was in Glasgow, Scotland. They sent CNN and all of their wealth and resources sent Wolf Blitzer to Edinburgh. They set up. They didn't realize there were 2 cities in Scotland. They sent him to Edinburgh instead. And then Joe Biden fell asleep at the summit. So it shows you how seriously he's taking it. He fell asleep. That was the big United States contribution, by the way. When climate change is a world problem, how is the United States helping out? Well, they sent Wolf Blitzer to the wrong city, and Joe Biden fell asleep. USA, count on us. I mean, if we need to be the world leader in climate change, folks, we're done. We're done. I have a little bit of hope, hoping that the rest of the world takes the lead here and drags the United States along kicking and screaming, which, by the way, the world already has. You look at what they're doing in Denmark. They have like a renewable energy island that can generate energy from millions of homes. You look at what they're doing in places like Sweden and Norway, China. Other places are leading. Canada, Australia, other places are leading. And thank goodness for it. Nowhere's perfect, though. I mean, of course, these are also, China, they're doing a lot of green efforts. They're also one of the major polluters in the world still. So, it's not all A or all B. It's just there are countries leading far better than the U.S. So plastic campaigners call it astounding that Coca-Cola. So this is from the Guardian piece here. A sponsorship deal between this year's UN climate conference and Coca-Cola which has been described as the world's top polluter by an environmental group, has been branded greenwash by campaigners. COP27 to be held in the Egyptian coastal resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, I'm probably mispronouncing that, from the 6th to 18th in November, is the world's primary forum for governments, businesses, and environmental organizations to tackle the climate emergency. And by businesses, they mean oil companies, baby. Remember last year, it was just a bunch of oil companies going, how can we not change and still help the environment? And the climate scientists being like, you can't. And the oil companies going, nah, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. So we were all hoping maybe the next climate summit is going to be a little less than a parody of itself. And they're starting out of the gate with flying colors. We got Coca-Cola sponsoring Coca-Cola, a mass-produced product that is made of sugar, carbonation, and shit that will probably take years off your life if you use it regularly. And I said use it, not drink it. No, if you consume Coca-Cola, you're a user. And by the way, I'm not like food shaming anybody. I enjoy the occasional cola too. By the way, it's a lot better in other places. When I can, I get a Mexican Coca-Cola instead because they use real cane sugar instead of the bullshit we use. So, but yeah. But, I actually, in recent years, I've enjoyed soda a little bit more than in the past. Like occasionally, I just kind of want a root beer. That's my favorite soda. But I try. It's like, it's a special treat, moderation. I met this woman. She goes, I drink 8 Diet Cokes a day. And I thought, wow, that's bad. I mean, that's bad. If you're drinking 8 a day, stop. Like do something. Like, that's not healthy. I'm not trying to food shame. I'm trying to help here. That's dangerous. Like 8 a day. 8. I mean, first of all, that's a really freaking expensive habit. That might be more expensive than being a smoker. 8 Diet Cokes. All right. Anyway, I'm grossing myself out just saying this stuff. So Coca-Cola is one of the world's top polluters, and they're having this greenwashing campaign by sponsoring this thing here. Emma Priestland, a coordinator for Break Free from Plastic, a global alliance of organizations and individuals, said Coca-Cola sponsoring the COP27 is pure greenwash. Coca-Cola is one of the world's biggest users of plastic. And of course, plastic, it gets into our oceans. It is not sustainable. We should not be doing it. So there you go. What can we look for in COP27? Coca-Cola, going to be a sponsor. Fantastic. So we're going to end here today. Oopsie. I just messed up something here. Here, hold on. All right, back. So this is another thing going on in the labor rights space. And this takes us out to near Boston at a Sysco factory. So Teamsters have been on strike for a while. The drivers have been on strike at the Sysco factories, which is the world's largest food distributor. And they've been using third-party drivers while the Teamsters have been on strike. So they're using scabs, basically. And now what police have been doing is they've literally been arresting the protesters. So let's take a look at this. All right, so we're going to watch this. This is from More Perfect Union. Update: police in Boston are arresting striking workers at Sysco, the world's largest food distributor. Let's watch this from the beginning. So there's the trucks there. Local outlet WCVB reports a massive law enforcement presence and multiple people being loaded into the back of a police van. Okay, so there's police. You can see police officers here going into the picket line. And here they are arresting some people. Background on the strikes: hundreds of drivers in Massachusetts and New York are on strike at Sysco, the world's largest food distributor. They're still on the picket line after Sysco's talks with the Teamsters broke down on Wednesday. And the arrest happened in Plimpton, outside of Boston. So let's go to another piece on this that kind of breaks it down, that says what they were being arrested for. And by the way, I actually take note of the way this article is arranged, and I'm going to point this out. This is from the New York Post. Up to 20 arrested after striking truckers block major food plant Sysco exits. Okay. So in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Striking truckers used tractor trailers to block the exits at New England's largest wholesale food distributor Monday and prevented some employees from leaving, resulting in as many as 20 arrests. Okay, did they do that? Let's keep going. More than 400 Teamster union members arrived at the Sysco facility, stopped about 100 employees from leaving. Police spent 2 hours negotiating with the picketers. After the attempted negotiation to move union members out of the roadway to create a safe, passable environment, unfortunately, we had to respond by removing members of the crowd who were inciting a hostile picket line. 16 to 20 people were arrested. About 300 Sysco drivers started their strike October 1st, seeking better pay and benefits. Houston-based Sysco, which has distributor facilities across the country, supplies food to schools, hospitals, nursing homes, and restaurants. And a Sysco spokesperson says that they are reaching a competitive labor agreement. Now, here's what's interesting. The Sysco warehouse in Plimpton, south of Boston, is still operating with third-party drivers. So they didn't mention that at first. They didn't mention that they're using third-party drivers. They referred to everyone as employees, which leads someone to think, oh, I guess some employees are for the strikes, others aren't. No. All the Teamsters are on strike. They're using third-party drivers. So really, this wasn't like, oh, we're blocking employees. This was just a typical picket line. They're making it out like, oh, yeah, they barred employees from leaving. They held the employees hostage without food and water. No. They just had a picket line. They had a picket line like you have on any other strike. So now they're saying they had to remove members because they incited a hostile picket line. Well, let's go back to the video. Let's go back to the video that we saw, which I guess isn't the video of the whole thing, fair. But let's take a look at this. Because it looks to me like police are breaking the picket line. Is that what it looks like to you? It's what it looks like to me. And for those listening to the podcast later, take my word for it. That's what it looks like. Here, all right, so look, there are police going into the picket line. You see them right there. They have their lights. Those are police going into the picket line. And there they are arresting somebody. So it looks like police are arresting people for the hostile picket line that they themselves created. So first of all, it was just a picket line. Nothing more. It was just a picket line. These aren't like employees v. employees versus employees. These are third-party drivers. These are scabs. And this wasn't about them. This was just a picket line. Like a picket line is a picket line. And so they're having these negotiations. And then they decide, oh, this picket line's getting hostile. We need to arrest people. Meanwhile, they're arresting people for the hostility they're causing. They're breaking into the picket line. So they're causing the hostility. And then they're arresting people for the problems they're causing. You see how that works? That's like saying, you know what I think's really happening is that strikes are working across the country. Strikes are working. And because strikes are working, the powers that be are scared. And because the powers that be are scared, they are now just arresting people for striking. It's your right to strike. It's your right as a worker to go on strike. But they're now arresting people for striking because that's the only tool they got left in their arsenal. You got to just arrest people for doing it. If it's working and it's spreading, stop it. That's what they're trying to do. Because, yeah, there's a hostile picket line. You created the hostile picket line. It's a picket line. Oh, they're keeping the employees in. No, they're not. First of all, it's third-party drivers. These are scabs. And second of all, they're not. They're just having a picket line. When it's a picket line, been anything other than a picket line. And it's interesting how the New York Post spun it to make it out like these arrests were totally necessary. And to make it out like it wasn't just targeting striking workers, which is what it was. And we just showed the video. What did that look like to you? Did that look like some hostile drivers locking people in a building? Or did that look like a picket line, like any other picket line, and cops were messing with people in the picket line and then decided they were going to arrest people that they were messing with? It sure as hell looked like the latter to me. Want to look at it one more time? Here, let's look at it one more time. It's a picket line. It's a picket line outside of a building. Look, it's a picket, and cops are going into it, and they're messing with the workers, and then they're arresting workers. So, man, New York Post kind of copying and pasting propaganda there a little bit, it looks like. A little bit of propaganda going on there. So this is proof that strikes are working, folks. This is proof that strikes are working. Because now they're resorting to arresting people for striking and making up bullshit reasons to arrest people for striking. Because union efforts are working, strikes are working. So now, and you see, in both stories today, they had to respond, the powers that be responded by literal and metaphorical force. What is like the most forceful thing you can do when workers are trying to unionize? Well, fire all the workers who are trying to unionize. It's the most forceful thing you can do. What's the most forceful thing you can do to a picket line? Start arresting the people on the picket line. So this is what we're up against. And the, the one kind of dose of hope here is that, hey, it's working. Union efforts are working. Strike efforts are working. They're effective. And it's really the biggest tool we have to fight back. The midterms are coming up. You're going to go to the ballot box. That's fine. Go for it. I'm going to vote too. Nothing wrong with voting. I encourage it. I go a step further. I do encourage voting. I have my criticisms of it. I have a ton of criticisms of electoralism. You know that. But I still do encourage voting because I think that if you don't vote, you're giving them exactly what they want. Where if you do vote, you're still kind of pushing back some. Because when people vote and people make their voices heard in various ways, including voting, you're saying to the powers that be, this is what we want. And that kind of really shines a light on the fact that we have a government that just does the bidding of corporate America and public opinion. They don't give a hoot about it. If you don't vote or do anything like that, then it's like, well, of course this is public opinion. You don't even vote. What do you know? So that's why I do encourage voting. If you don't, I get it. Like, I get it. I know people who don't. I get where they're coming from. And I get how it can be discouraging. And by the way, even though I'm someone who votes, I definitely leave stuff blank all the time. Because there's tons of situations where there is nothing that is worth voting for. Where I'm just like, it is not worth voting for either of these, candidates. So I definitely leave stuff blank. Not all the time, obviously, but when I deem it to be the right way to go, I don't, I mean, I live in California, so there's plenty of times where it's just like two blank suit corporate Democrats, and I'm just like, why should I pick between you guys? You're both terrible. I'm not, I'm not voting for either one of you. But anyway, but my point is, voting's all well and good. That's fine. But it is a very small tool in the toolkit for change. And what are some much larger tools? Striking, protesting, and solidarity amidst the working class. Union efforts, worker co-ops. Those are the tools we really have to fight back. That's just the truth. And you can tell it's working because now they're just firing people. They're just arresting people because it's working and they're scared. Their propaganda efforts aren't working as well as they wanted it to. That union vote in Amazon didn't turn out the way it did because everyone was so convinced by Amazon's anti-union bullshit. No, it turned out the way it did because they were firing pro-union people, so people were scared of losing their jobs. So that's the news for this week, folks. We covered all the big bases on Get Your News On with Ron. We covered digital rights, labor rights, and climate change. Those are some of the big pillars. So again, some of those calls to action that we issued out there, makedmsafe.com. Again, that URL, makedmssafe.com, and battleforthenet.com to demand net neutrality. Makedmssafe.com, makedmsafe.com is to demand full encryption across social media messaging. Guys, tour dates I got them. Go to romplacone.com. The first tour dates of 2023 have been announced. January 28th, I'm going to be in Tucson, Arizona. And here's the kicker, folks. That show in Tucson is going to be the first screening. It's going to be a stand-up show, but also we're going to have a screening of my short film, Loner. It's only 12 minutes long, so we're going to have a screening of the film, too. So it's a stand-up show and a screening. And if you get tickets soon, you get a discount. If you buy tickets for a limited time only, buy tickets, use the promo code Lucy at checkout. That's Lucy, Lucy at checkout, and you get money off your tickets. So discounted early bird special tickets are available now, but they're only available for a limited time. So if you're in Tucson, get tickets now. I know it's a long way off. You're like, Ron, I don't know what's going to be going on in January. Well, mark your calendar and get tickets now so you can get cheaper tickets. Romplacone.com for those tickets. February 17th and 18th, I'll be in San Diego. Information on those shows also available at my website, romplacone.com. And, hey, I mentioned my short film, Loner. If you want to support this show on the sustainability end, patreon.com/romplacone. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of exclusive perks. I do a patron stream once a week. I do Zoom shows for patrons periodically. And that'll be coming back some with the winter upon us. And you can watch my short film Loner in its entirety. That film has not been dropped to the public yet. The first screening is going to be in January in Tucson, Arizona, but you can watch it now if you're a patron. Patreon.com/romplacone. You can also see my historical interpretation of Lucian the Satirist. Lucian the Satirist was a writer / orator / satirist from 125 AD. I do a historical interpretation of him. That's available now on my Patreon, and videos of that will not be dropped to the public anytime soon. My next step for that project is to take it to Renaissance fairs across the world. So I don't know. It's going to be a long time before video of that will be anywhere. But you can watch it now if you're a patron. And that's all for a give what you can level. Even $1 a month goes a long way. That's $12 a year. Come on. Patreon.com/romplacone. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for tuning in. And you know the drill in the meantime. Lucy, she says meow. I say peace, love, and a general strike.